Welcome to yet another beautiful day, another beautiful program. And this is Humanist TV Africa, the online TV channel where you get the best information that is secular, that is underrated, that is undogmatic, that is reasonable, that is well researched, and that is pro humanity. My name is Kato Mukasa. Of course, I'm Ugandan and a lawyer by training, but most importantly, I'm a human being and a team member of Humanist TV Africa. Welcome, my brother comrade from Ghana, Nana Kufo. Nana Kufo, welcome.
Welcome, Komrakato.
Yeah, good morning to you.
Good morning to you too. And it's always a privilege being on this platform. Thank you very much.
That's great. That's very great. Thank you so much, Nana. It's a good morning here where I'm based right now. And what's the time in Ghana?
It's exactly 3:10. 10:3.
Oh, great.
3 minutes past 10 o'clock.
Great. It is 4 minutes past 11 o'clock where I am based right now. And now, having said that, I want to give flowers to our producer, Dennis Bongole, who's based in Uganda. And of course, Brian Kabeko, another producer, and Logan Hayes, who is based in South Africa. And of course, the entire team, the entire crew of panelists with whom we do this noble work of taking information to the people. Of course, we are a team of 12 disciples of humanism at the moment. And of course, we are going to be adding more of the disciples to take this message where you are. Of course, our intention is to give you the right information as a TV does, because a TV must entertain, must educate, but must also inform. And there's no way you can inform people without being informed yourself. There's no way you can educate people without being educated yourself. So our team, trust me, has well-informed, well-educated people who are going to be passing on words of wisdom to you, but also hearing from you. We shall have a segment where, with time, we shall be able to get feedback from you. So our crew will be able to make interviews in Ghana, make interviews in Uganda, make interviews in Kenya, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Malawi, South Africa, wherever we are in Africa. We're going to be making live interviews on the streets of your capital city or your village. Maybe it's Lagos in Nigeria or Accra in Ghana. We shall be there with our camera crew, getting live comments from you and airing them right here on the channel, because we want it to be informative but also to be interactive. Now, this is the work we have given ourselves to do, and of course we are here to do exactly that. Now, if you want to follow this and more of our conversations, please remember to subscribe to Humanist TV Africa. Simply dial, simply tap, simply touch on that link and then click subscribe. You'll be able to get all the information, all the episodes, all the videos, all the news items right in time. So, having said that, today we are discussing something very important, and that is humanism. But of course, we are going to give it a background, but also give it a modern perspective. Now, if you just had humanism today, or last year, or this year, believe you me, humanism has a history that is as rich as our own humanity. Humanism, as I said yesterday, and I've been saying over the years, humanism is part of us. All of us are born humanists. But the word humanism is the only word that was coined in the 20th century. Otherwise, I didn't come just by accident yesterday or 45 years ago. There is a series of people who led to my being me. I'm talking about my four, four grandparents. Because humanity has existed for so long, as I documented. So it means that I came from somewhere, and that blood has been running through a number of people to see the version of me today. And who knows, others may see the version of me today 1,000 years to come. Now, it means that humans have been around for a long, long time. And as I put it in this book, and as we put it in several other documents, we have been here for some time. But of course, we have been humanists, known to be using the word humanism just in the 20th century. Now, I'm going to give you a background of the ancient humanism I'm talking about. And then when I'm done with that, I'll invite my comrade in the studio in Ghana, Nana Kufuor, to give his own version, of course, of what he knows about the history I'm going to give. If he has any addition, we'll add that, or if you want to supplement, we'll make any supplement, and then we are going to be able to move on. I'm going to make it more of an interactive with you who is seeing me. I want you to take down notes, but also I want to make it more educative and more informative. In my book, Dennis is going to bring it closer to the screen. In my book, Modern Humanism, and how to make it work for the people, Dennis, you can bring it to the screen. In this book, Modern Humanism, and how to make it work for the people, I wrote this book. It took me some good time, over 10 years of research, until when I got the guts to say enough is enough of research, let me put it out. In this book, I define humanism, but also I give you the history of humanism. And I tell you that humanism became popular in the 20th century, but that is when only the word was used. Mark you, humanism was used before the 21st century. People were humanists, but in different shapes. We had religious humanists later on, we had philosophical humanists, we had intellectuals later on, we had other types of humanists, as I'm going to be discussing. Of course, when you look at the time of the Roman Empire, you look at the Greeks, you look at the Chinese, you look at the Japanese, you look at ancient Egypt, or what we call the Kemetic Egypt, and you look at the Nile, you look at Africa as it is today. Africa was never Africa, the one you know today. Africa was different. Now, when you look at all those sources, all those histories, you are going to find out that basically humanists existed, but in different shades. Now, there were philosophers who talked about humanism and humanistic principles in the 4th and 5th century BCE. BCE, and I'm repeating this, before the birth of your Jesus Christ, and later on, before the birth of your Muhammad and all those other gurus, they were humanists. They were people who said the exact words, and even better than what Jesus said. They were people who encouraged people to love one another. There were people who said, never retaliate, never revenge, love one another, be kind. Those were words that were said by so many other people before Jesus Christ was born. That is, if he was born. And that is if he said those very words. Now, Athens of fourth century BCE, before Common Era, BCE, or Athens, which is now in the current day Greece. There were Greek philosophers who encouraged open debates. We talk about Socrates, one of my mentors. I will say is my mentor because I read many of his books, or books that carried his message, because Socrates never wrote anyway. But the books, people who recorded his in conversations, such as Plato, who was his student. Actually, my son is called Plato. Yeah, because I named my son after Plato, and Plato was a student of Socrates. Now, Socrates never wrote, but believe you me, he is one of the most intelligent creatures that graced this world. And Socrates is the guy who began the first university, in a way. Why? Because he could gather people and teach them. But his method of teaching was not the usual method of teaching in our colonial-based schools, where a teacher comes and tells you whatever he wants, and then he says a lesson is finished. That's not how Socrates taught. Socrates taught by asking questions. That's how he taught. Socrates talked with audiences of young people in hundreds in the Greece of the time, but he never told anyone what to do. Never. Socrates always asked them questions. And when you answer, then he tells you another alternative. Then you begin answering again. Then he asks you a question. We call it the Socrates approach to education. Socrates never indoctrinated people, never told them what to do, but made them think about what they were doing, about what they are saying, to the extent of questioning whether whatever they were thinking was valid. And because of his wisdom, the nobles of the time, the kings, the emperors, gave him their sons, because in those days it was patriarchy throughout. The daughters were meant for marriage. The daughters, the girls, never saw any meeting of Socrates. And throughout the 1st century, 5th century, girls, women were kept in the kitchen for home, for production of children. Now, Socrates was talking to boys, and the crime they said he committed was that he corrupted the moral fabric of young people. Why? Because whoever listened to Socrates talk began questioning the leadership in Athens, began questioning the rulers of the time, began questioning the cultures of the time. Now, Socrates and others I'm going to mention is regarded as one of the people that actually promoted humanistic principles, because he was questioning everything. And as I said, Socrates never lectured you. Socrates allowed you to speak. And then Socrates taught you by asking you questions. So he was the best teacher, because he would pose a question, and then a group of people answer it, and then he probes them, and then they answer back. He probes them, he asks more questions. At the end of the day, you have understood by answering your own self. So he never told you what to do. But because he was so intelligent, and he had a university in quotes, because it was not a university as in name, but a school of thinkers, where people could come and he sits in the middle of them, and then he begins talking as he smiles. He talks and smiles as he asks questions, and people ask back questions, and people contradict themselves, and they say, okay, do we agree that your answer is not valid? Then you say, yes, I agree. What do you think is not valid? I think when I said this, I made a mistake. Then he asks you, what do you think is the right answer? Then you give the right answer, and he asks the public, what do you think is the right answer? Then you give the right answer. And he asks the public, what do you think is the right answer? Then you give the right answer. And he asks the public, what do you think is the right answer? Then you give the right answer. And he asks the public, what do you think is the right answer? Then you give the right answer. And he asks the public, what do you think is the right answer? Then you give the right answer. And he asks the public, what do you think is the right answer? Then you give the right answer. And he asks the public, what do you think is the right answer? Then you give the right answer. And he asks the public, what do you think is the right answer? Then you give the right answer. And he asks the public, what do you think is the right answer? Then you give the right answer. And he asks the public, what do you think is the right answer? Then you give the right answer. And he asks the public, what do you think is the right answer? Then you give the right answer. And he asks the public, what do you think is the right answer? Then you give the right answer. And he asks the public, what do you think is the right answer? Then you give the right answer. And he asks the public, what do you think is the right answer What do you think? Do you think his answer is right? The public says, yeah, finally, we agree with him that he has got it right. Now, it means that he had taught you and he had taught the entire public without actually saying anything. But he was always guiding you towards getting to the right answer. The Socratic approach of education is the best method. And we have not yet adopted it. Yet Socrates used it to teach Plato and many other disciples that followed, because that is the best way to teach people. You don't tell them what to think. You stir their thinking pots, and then they know how to think. Don't tell them what to think. Help them know how to think. And that's the principle that I've been talking about in all my works as a humanist writer. Education system of today is corrupted, that we enter classes and we are told what to do, what to think. We are programmed to think in a certain direction. Now, that is not what Socrates taught in ancient Greece. Socrates posed a question, say a subject, and then people gave their own definitions of life. Then when you give a definition of life, he will ask you, are you sure? Why do you say so? Tell me more. He was the first lawyer. Me as a lawyer, I was trained to cross-examine. Socrates was the best cross-examiner. When I'm in court, I'm supposed to cross-examine you. Now, Socrates would cross-examine you right before the public, and you see you are stupid. Then he tells you, don't worry, make your answer this way. Think again. He gives you more time. So that's why, at the end of the day, people of power began to hate him and said, this man insults us. But he never said a word, because whenever they could go to engage him in public, he would make them look so stupid. Yet, he never insulted them. He was simply asking questions using their own answers. And what happened to Socrates? Socrates was executed. Socrates was killed by the ruling class of the time. Why? Because he annoyed them. Because they say that his crime was corrupting the moral fiber of young people. Why? Because he made them think. And how was he killed? He was put in prison and he was told, please come out and denounce your values, denounce your principles. And he said, no. Then he was asked, how do you want to die? Then he said, give me poison. And he was given poison, the hemlock type. And that's how he died. He refused to recant. He refused to say, I'm wrong. He said, I am not wrong. You are wrong. I am using my head to think. And I know I'm right. I have not corrupted any morals. They were already corrupted anyway. So that's how Socrates was now. One of his best students was Plato. And as I said, I get the name of my child, my son, according to Plato, because I pick it right from Socrates' student, Plato. And Plato became one of the best thinkers of the time. But we say, as historians, that actually Plato also came to Kemetic Egypt, which is Africa, to also learn more. But his first master was Socrates. Now, ancient Greek people produced so many philosophers. I'm going to mention many names right here, who were the best thinkers of the time. Protagoras, open debates. Protagoras, one of those philosophers who had their Democritus, known as the thinking philosopher or the laughing philosopher. Protagoras, for example, lived 2,400 years ago. Jesus, it is said, lived about 2,000 years ago. So the guys I'm talking about, Socrates, Plato, Protagoras, and others I'm going to mention, lived before your Jesus Christ. So they were wiser before your God came, and they never knew your God at all because they never knew Jesus Christ. Plato wrote books before Jesus was born. So there was knowledge before Jesus was invented, because I always said that actually Jesus was invented. But these guys wrote books. That's why people begin wondering that if Jesus was actually right and he existed and did all those miracles, how come that the historians of the time never wrote a damn thing about him? Yet they were there. That's the question people ask. Greece had philosophers 500 years before Christ was born. Greece was advanced with philosophers. How come, even during the time of Jesus Christ, these philosophers never mentioned him? But I'm digressing a bit. Let me go back to Protagoras. Protagoras, who lived 2,400 years ago, one of the things we remember about him is said that man is the measure of all things. Protagoras, one of the philosophers, said that man is the measure of all things. Now, when you think about it, and you were humans like me, you begin wondering, what did this man mean? He was simply saying that everything starts with humans and ends with humans, because man is the measure of everything. Are we together, my brother in the studio?
Yes, we are together, Comrade Kato.
Yes. Now, let us continue with this. Now, when you look at these thinkers of the time, what am I doing right now? I'm giving you a foundation, my viewer, on your TV right now watching us. I'm giving a foundation how humanism has existed for so many centuries. As I speak right now, I'm talking about the 4th century. 4th century. We are in the 21st century, not so?
Yeah.
I'm talking about the 4th century. But remember where I started, I said that humanism is part of us. But I'm trying to show you intelligent people who existed before your Jesus Christ was invented. Now, in the 1st century, we had what we call the Stoic thinkers. We had what we called, what came to be known as the Stoics. Stoics. Stoic. Stoics. Marcus Aurelius and others came to be known as the best Stoics. Actually, I'm a Stoic personally because I love their philosophy. Now, the Stoic thinkers also came and shaped the world. They were so intelligent. They were the best teachers of the time. I've just given an example of Marcus Aurelius, who was actually a ruler, a leader, who ruled for so many years, of course, but of course, one of the best leaders of the time. Now, we had also what we called the religious humanists who came in later on. We have, of course, Romans come in, because I will talk about the Greeks. Then here comes in the Romans. The Romans became so terrible, became so powerful. The Roman Empire took over. Remember, I talked about Macedonia? If I did. Then I'm talking about Romans now, the Roman Empire. Present day Turkey. I don't know, present day Italy. Because Turkey is the Ottoman Empire, which I'll talk about later on. So when I talk about Roman Empire, just put in your head Italy as it is. Of course, Roman Empire took over the world by storm and conquered almost every living thing, including conquering Jerusalem and the Middle East, including conquering North Africa and much of Europe. In fact, at one time, where I am right now in the UK, the Romans were here. They had taken over. Here, the Romans had taken over Britain at one point. because they were so powerful. They were so powerful. The Roman Empire became so aggressive and had many interesting characters. And it was known for having black-skinned generals. People don't know this history, that black people actually existed in the Roman Empire and they ruled as top-ranking army generals, including an army general who took over England, black man. And a statue of this man actually still remains. Now, all these are historical figures which you can simply use your phone and research. But remember, my book documents everything. You can always get all this information and read for yourself. Now, the Roman Empire was so strong, so powerful. And what made it powerful is that it had a collection of all people, people from Middle East, who were Cushites, who were people, they call them people with burnt skin. Because when someone who is Caucasian looks at me of that time, they'll say, this guy was supposed to be like me, but I think he was burnt. He was burnt by fire. They were called people with a burnt skin. And when you look at the Roman history, they were one of the terrible fighters in the army, black men, who much of the time led Roman soldiers into war. Julius Caesar was being assisted by a black man as a general who would actually save him from death. Yet the world says Julius Caesar was the best. No. There were other black generals in that army because Roman was so powerful. It had a collection of people from all over. I call them races. Now, when the Roman Empire took over and properly covered the entire planet, the Roman Empire changed the dynamics of things. But also the Roman Empire came with now a rebirth of other philosophers. We see a man called Marcus Torus Cicero. Cicero became one of the best speakers for humanity. And the principles which Jesus Christ espoused later on actually have been spoken by Cicero. They have been spoken by Democritus, who was also known as the laughing philosopher. They have been spoken by Hippocrates, the only known, and I'm putting it in quotes, modern medicine doctor. People call Hippocrates the first medical doctor. And of course, those who have gone to medical school, they know of the Hippocratic oath. Do not do harm. The role of a doctor is to preserve life. Do no harm. In fact, the principle of do no harm is taught in law school. I learned it as a lawyer. Do no harm principle works even in international relations, international law and diplomacy. Do no harm is applicable in war. Right now, when I see babies dying in Palestine, I cry because they are breaching the do no harm principle. Do no harm. Even during war, the natural law principle, the conflict of law principle, the humanitarian law principle says do no harm. Even when you are in combat, if there are people, save them. If people put their hands up, do not shoot. Create a safe passage, even for your enemies to pass through and run. Give them a second chance. As long as they are retreating, they are simply saying, we are tired of war. Therefore, do no harm. Now, the do no harm principles began earlier on in the 4th, 5th century. These guys went to war, but they had principles such as do no harm. If someone surrenders, instead take them as prisoners. What do we see today in Gaza? Children being shot dead. Children as young as 2-3 months. What crime have these babies done? People who surrender, they want to escape being shot dead. Pregnant women being shot dead. Now, there is no Ubuntu, there is no humanism when people are fighting. Now, I go back again to the ancient history which I wanted to talk about. Hippocrates, the first medical doctor to bring the oath. But of course, as I've been writing in my book, we all know that Imhotep, the ancient Egyptian medical guru, actually is said to be the best scientist and the best doctor who came actually before Hippocrates. Imhotep came before Socrates and was in modern day Egypt, or what you call ancient Kemet. Now, Plato, Socrates, Epicurus, one of the best thinkers of the time, Confucius. Now we are going to China. Buddha. These all existed in BCE. And I'm repeating, BCE. They existed before the birth of Jesus Christ, or before the Common Era. Now, Epicurus, Confucius, Buddhism, the Socratic principle. Remember, I talked about Socrates giving us Plato, Plato giving us Aristotle. You have heard about Aristotle. Now, all these are thinkers. Aristotle, one of the best philosophers on humanities. And Aristotle came out of Plato. Now, like, I can be a teacher. I teach Mokasa, and then Mokasa teaches Nana, and Nana teaches, this is the history I'm giving you of how these philosophers, because all of them had mini schools. How are these schools organized? You go in the compound, and a man sits on a raised platform and begins talking. He begins talking, and then you talk back. It's a conversation, it's the dialogue, it's a debate. Meanwhile, people were learning. In fact, the best emperors of the time, the best generals of the time, sent their children to Plato, to Aristotle, to Socrates, to be taught how to lead. Because there were no schools. And now, a school, an entire school, was in the head of one man. An entire school. One man was the library, was the teacher, was the mentor. But these men were highly intelligent, but also highly respected. In fact, these men went to Kemetic Egypt, or Kemet, to learn, because in Kemet of that time, Kemet had libraries. Already in Africa, they had invented writing, and there were books. There were libraries in Alexandria. Just go and research, whoever is viewing me, because I'm giving you facts. Where was the first real university? Where was the first real library? It was in Kemet. Kemet. And Kemet, where is Kemet? Part of North Africa. Now, these people used to go to Kemet to earn, to learn knowledge. And as I said in one of my discussions, that actually the idea of university, the idea of degrees, looking at the pyramid and all that, all began in Africa. Now, when we move from there, we look at what we call the Renaissance period. And the Renaissance period brought in what we call the Renaissance humanists. Now, one of the most famous Renaissance humanists that we know today is a man well known as Sir Thomas More. Sir Thomas More, right in England, who lived between 1478 to 1535. Now, Sir Thomas More brings in the aspect of religious humanism, because Sir Thomas More was both a Catholic but also openly a humanist. And what did he do? He challenged King Henry VIII of England, because King Henry VIII wanted to marry another woman of his choice so that he can get a successor. He was tired of this woman he had taken from his brother. And then he wanted to marry another one. And then the church says, you cannot. Which church? The Catholic Church. And then Thomas More says, you can't do it, my Lord. He's a humanist in his writing, in his sayings, but also he's a Catholic. And he wants to impose himself, his ideas, to the King of England. I put this one in my book here. And then what happens? The King of England finishes him. Of course, we have other philosophers of the time, Plutarch, Horace, Mark Twain, Rousseau, Nietzsche, and Voltaire, Rousseau, and so many others. Then we have a period when we have now religious humanists, of course. We have scientific humanism taking over, and all that. Now we move to the 20th century. Of course, I haven't mentioned Christianity. I can take you a little bit back, viewer, and I said that in between, of course, when I say Catholicism now, Thomas More and all that, it means that Jesus Christ had been born, or at least had been invented, and his philosophy had been invented now, because we know when he was said to have been born anyway. Now, Jesus Christ dies at 35, 36 years. Then, of course, the Jews denounce him, because up to now, the Jews, the Israelites, Judaism as a religion doesn't consider Jesus Christ as a Messiah. In fact, the Jews up to now are waiting for their own Messiah. They don't consider your Christ as their Messiah. The Jews who follow Judaism up to now are waiting for their own Messiah. They never believed in Jesus Christ. Now, if you're an African watching me today, shame on you, because you think that people who share the tribe, blood, and clan and DNA with Jesus Christ believed in him, and actually want to go to Jerusalem and make a trip, when those very people don't believe in Jesus Christ. Judaism does not believe in Jesus Christ. Welcome, Obasi.
Oh, thank you all.
Yes, I will
Good.
continue. Yes, Judaism does not recognize Jesus Christ. Judaism has a different religious book called Tanakh. Tanakh has one section called Torah and another which has oral traditions also put into that book. So their Bible is not the Bible, Their Messiah is not yet come. That's why they want to remain near Jerusalem. Now that's the period. And of course, we know what the Romans do or did. I will explain that in one of my episodes in future. I'll tell you how the Romans actually created the concept of Christianity. Because ask yourself, how come that the Jews don't believe in their own? So the question I always ask people, how come that the Jews, the brothers and sisters of Jesus Christ, don't believe in him? In fact, some of them say he was not born. He never existed. Others say he existed, but we never liked him. He was a normal guy. In fact, was born out of wedlock, and Joseph was tried in a court because Joseph had broken the Jewish law. Was tried for impregnating Maria without officially marrying her. But again, the name Joseph never existed among the Jewish community. You get me? The name Maria never existed. The name Jesus never existed. Are we together, guys? Because among the Jews, there is no Jesus as a name. There is no Maria among the Jews. There is no Joseph. Ask yourself, how come that Joseph, a name from Europe, is given to a man who was in the Middle East? It is impossible. Now, don't you use your brain, the viewer, your viewer, my viewer, but now you use your simple mathematics of addition and deduction. Say, how come that a name which is European is given to someone having been born in the Middle East. The question would be, where the people in the Middle East don't have their own names? That's the question I would ask the viewer. I'm asking you again, whoever is viewing us today, that the question is, do you want to tell us that the people in Middle East never had their own names so that they can adopt European names? They can be called John, they can be called Matthew, they can be called Mark, name them. I laugh at you. Whoever thinks that people in the Middle East would actually be called John, Isaiah, Mark, Joseph, Mary, never. Now the question is, was Jesus called Jesus? No, he was never called Jesus. I've put his name actually right in this book, and I've been talking about his real name according to the Jews. Now, when Jesus comes and goes, of course, Jesus went against the rules of the Romans, but also against the rules of the Jews. The Pharisees, who were in charge of the temple, were offended by your Jesus Christ because he was disregarding them. He was taking their own survival. Remember, when you look at Noah, when you look at Abraham, and you look at how the 12 tribes of Judah, the 12 tribes of Judah, or the 12 tribes of Jews, or Israel, that's to make it better, the 12 tribes of Israel were broken in two. The 2 going for Judah, make Judah as a kingdom, and the 10 making Israel. In the north was Israel, in the south was Judah or Judea. Now, this is Israel. Of course, the north, which is Israel, was defeated and wiped on the map. They were defeated by the Macedonians, the Turks, of course, the Roman Empire, of course, the Assyrians, the Ecosists, all of them used to attack them. Now, the 10 tribes were finished. They were banished into Persia, into the present-day Turkey, Iran, Iraq. The 10 tribes of Israel were destroyed, and there remained 2 tribes in Judea. And those are the tribes now that became the Israel of today, because they survived, of course, even under the Ottoman Empire, they survived under Hashru. AD 130, Emperor Adrian finishes off Israel completely. AD 130. You can just Google it if you can. You can just research it. Who completely wiped out Israel? Emperor Adrian. The year is 130 AD. And then it takes over. They are slaughtered like animals. Israelites are killed completely. The survivors remain as slaves. Others run into exile, and Judea is taken over. So there is no Israel. There's no Israelites. They are into captivity. Adrian finishes them off. The Roman Empire later on, of course, takes over, and then everything is under confusion. They are into slavery. They go into Egypt later on. I'm using now the Bible way of interpreting history, but also the actual events as they happened, as recorded. The Ottoman Empire, of course, took over that area. And what happened? The Ottoman Empire says, when we take over, you must behave like us. So the Israelites of that time lost their culture. What happens? The Ottoman Empire becomes so powerful, and of course, Islam is preached. When did Muhammad come? So many years later. Islam is born in the area, and the people found in that area today where there is a conflict are all Islamized, because Islam came as a copycat between 2 religions. Remember, did I mention that Christianity was created by the Romans? I think I mentioned that. Did I say that there was Judaism, which was truly a religion for Israelites? I think I did mention that. So we had 2 religions in that region of Middle East, Christianity and Judaism, 2 major religions. Now, what happens when the Ottoman Empire come? When the Ottoman Empire come, they force everyone. That is now when the Muhammad come, live on the Ottoman Empire. When Muhammad come as Muhammad, the aggressor, because Muhammad's approach was using violence. In the first 12 years of Muhammad, he was a bit peaceful. But when he saw that people were not taking him serious, Muhammad said, by the sword, we are going to spread Islam. By the sword. Now, by that edict, if I use that word, Islam became a force of violence in what they called jihad. Remember, Christians had used crusades. Hopefully, all of us have heard about crusades. These were not a cup of tea crusades. They were blood and iron crusade. Everyone must become a Christian, whether you want it or not. Now, that era was stopped when Muhammad took over with his Islam, and Muhammad had nothing but an army. Muhammad had nothing but an army of killers, barbaric killers who killed in the name of Allah. Now, and that's how Islam spread throughout the Middle East. Remember, Middle East had two religions of the time. Of course, there are others, but the major ones, Christianity had taken over, and Judaism. Now, Islam is invented. When Islam is invented, Islam takes over, wipes out Judaism, wipes out Christianity. What happens now? Everyone was forced to be a Muslim. It means that the Jews who were in that area were converted into Islam. In fact, those who refused to convert were killed, were made to pay taxes, were made to wear certain clothes like yellow. These are historical facts. Anyone can research them. What happened to the Jews who stayed during the rule of Muhammad? Because Muhammad was a political person and a messiah of sorts. You can imagine, he's the leader politically and he's the messiah. He's the messenger. Now, a man who says kill him is the man who says, I'm a messenger of God. Now, the Jews who stayed were killed, were enslaved, were made to wear bells. Bells, in my vernacular, call them echide. We are made to wear bells like dogs. We are made to wear yellow clothes so that they can be identified. So many Jews were innocently killed by the Mohammedans, by the Muslims. Now, what happened is that the Muslims take over, they make the entire place Islam. So it means that Judaism is finished. It means that the entire Middle East becomes Muslim. And that's how Islam spread. In fact, Islam spread as far as the West, where I'm based. And I'm talking about Ottoman Empire's influence. And of course, Islam, Muhammad, and all that stuff. They went as far as North Africa. That's why today you see the impact there, which is, of course, Islam took over almost everything. Now, to bring you back to speed, I'm showing you the discussion I'm having today is humanism, ancient humanism. Now, you know what I'm saying? Remember that if someone is using blood and iron as Bismarck's philosophy, there is no humanism. There is no humanism. When someone is saying to, if you want to survive, accept my religion and make what you call shahada. Say, Muhammad is the prophet of God and is the only prophet, true prophet, Messiah of God. And by his name, we are saved. And you force people to say, peace be upon him. And now, whoever doesn't take the Shahada must die. Now, viewer, how do you dare tell me that Islam is a religion of peace when it was spread through violence, through death, through torture? I've just given the example how Islam treated Jews like dogs. They made them wear bells. It is historical. They made them wear yellow clothes. They made them pay taxes called aziz. These are historical facts, well documented. They would make them pay taxes. I remember very well, I think it was called aziza. Now, whoever doesn't pay that tax must die. Now, this is how this religion is spread. And therefore, Judaism is wiped out, Christianity is wiped out. This is how Islam takes over the entire Middle East. But remember, these are people who are either cousins, these are people who are relatives. But because they have different ideologies, they are different. Assyrians are different. Persians are different. Medians are different. Today we're talking about Iraq, Iran, Syria, Lebanon. These are areas we're talking about. Now, to bring you back to perspective, you see that I've talked about Islam is coming over and taking over Christianity. Now, Islam ruled the world until the First World War. In other words, the Ottoman Empire was so strong until the First World War. In order to make it much easier, Turkey was very strong until the First World War. Today, to bring up to speed, Turkey is fighting back. Turkey is fighting back because Turkey, which represents the Ottoman Empire, was finished by who? By the Western powers, by the British, by the Americans, by all these other powers. They connive to make sure that you have to reduce the powers of Turkey. Today, who's rising up in the area? Iran. Iran is asserting themselves in the region. Now, humanism, going back to the ancient history of humanism, I talked about how it came. And I was very clear in my introduction that there was nothing like a word known as humanism until the 20th century. But there were people who were humanistic. And I've said that Muslims of that time were never humanistic because they spread their religion through blood and iron. And I say that even the Catholics of that time were never humanistic because they spread their religion through crusades and burning people on the stake. Now, humanism does not teach us to be violent. That's why I began by telling you people like Socrates, those were the true humanists. Plato, Confucius, Buddha, Hippocrates, Democritus, Marcus Cicero. These were the true humanists of the day. But which type of humanists were they? They were religious humanists. With time, we end up seeing scientific humanists. We end up seeing poetic humanists like Mark Twain, Rousseau, Horace, Plutarch, Nietzsche, Friedrich Nietzsche, and others became the humanists. Now we followed in the 20th century. Today, we're talking about humanism, but humanism, the way we know it today, began proper to be used as a word in the 20th century. In Africa, because I've talked about the entire world, how about Africa? One was going to ask. Remember I told you Kemetic Egypt or Kemet? And I said that Kemet was the birth of humanism. And Kemet is Africa. When I talk about Kemet, Kemet was not Egypt, never at all. These guys are want to rewrite history. Kemet stretched in West Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, all those parts. Kemet stretched up the Nile where I come from. Kemet was so big, the entire Sudan as it is today. Kemet was very big. The name Africa was never there. The name Africa was simply given to us by imperialists, by colonizers. We were never called Africa. We were kingdoms, each kingdom with their own name. But Kemet was one word that could be used to describe the land of burnt people. I talked about Cushites, people with my skin, with your skin. They could say, I think they were supposed to be like us, but they were burnt along the way. So the land that had burnt people, the land of black people, Kemet represented them. Kemet was so big, up to the Nile, where I come from, the source of the Nile, up to West Africa, where you guys come from. That was Kemet. So the revisionists who write history say, oh, Kemet was only Egypt. Actually, the Arabs were never in Northern Africa until just recently. They were not there. The entire region was purely covered with people having the burnt skin, the Cushites and others. And we talk about people who ended up occupying Spain. Hopefully, you have heard about these people from Africa who end up occupying Spain, occupying Portugal, covering these parts in the Middle East, right from present-day Africa. So Africa was one. You could easily move from the present-day Africa to the Middle East. It was a matter of crossing over, a matter of moving. Movement was so easy. Some of these things have been created just a century ago to demarcate and all that kind of stuff. Now, Kemet was the present-day Africa. The word Africa is a word of a colonizer who gave it to us, and actually was giving it to us as an abuse, as an insult. But of course, we have nothing to do. We are all called Africans, but it was never our name. Now, going back to humanism, what about Africa? Africa, our cultures, as we said yesterday, our cultures, our practices were purely humanistic. As I said yesterday, as Linda taught us, rightly so, that in Africa, you don't take without giving. Not so? That's why everyone else was able to come to Africa, and we received them. We received them. We received them. Because in Africa, as I said yesterday, at my home in Africa, in my village, we always say in my vernacular that in your homestead, there is no road passing through your home. So whoever comes in your home, welcome them. And before you ask them anything, give them a glass of water, give them a plate of food. That is the original Kemet, where we welcomed everyone. We could only fight you when you thought you were a threat to us. But when you come with an open arm, no arms, no spear, we welcome you. Now, Ubuntu is one of the philosophies that is African. I'm going to read for you in one book here, and then I'll get it back to you. In my book, page 44, this is the book. The book is called Modern Humanism and How to Make It Work for the People. In my book, on page 44, I talk about, page 4, I say that Ubuntu philosophy is an African philosophy that places emphasis on being self through others. It is a form of humanism which can be expressed in the popular phrase in Zulu language, which states Ubuntu ngumuntu ngabantu. Ubuntu ngumuntu ngabantu. In any case, Ubuntu is a nebulous concept of common humanity, oneness, humanity that brings in the core values that you are because I am. I'm repeating that you are because I am. Ubuntu means you are because I am. Ubuntu means oneness and common humanity. Through Ubuntu, we see the capacity of African culture to express compassion, reciprocity, dignity, harmony, and human dignity, being in the core interest of building and maintaining community justice and mutual caring. Ubuntu is spiritual and very married to African traditional way of life that one may think of it as old humanism. Humanism is about humans and humanity. Then we go back to me. Humanism is about humans and humanity. Then I'm done with the quotation from the book. Now, humanism, I'm repeating. I was quoting from my book. You can find it on Amazon. Simply put in my name, Katom Mukasa, and search for Modern Humanism and how to make it work for the people. That's the book I wrote. It is 2 years on Amazon. Please get it and educate yourself. Now, humanism is about humanity and being humane. Africans, as they call us, as they wrongly call us, we are the mothers and fathers of humanism. Even when I've mentioned all those philosophers, even when I haven't mentioned an African philosopher, we are actually the mothers and fathers of humanism because we practiced it before anyone thought about it. I've just quoted that popular saying in South Africa of Ubuntu philosophy. But all of us, even in Ghana, you have your own version of Ubuntu. Not necessarily the words change. Now, that is humanism in a brief. And I've just given you a history, our viewers, of where we come from. And I've just said in conclusion that the word, the terminology humanism, only began in the 20th century. That is humanism. That's where we come from. Now, in the next segment, having brought in my brothers to speak, I'm going to discuss with you in brief, and I show you now. Of course, I'm going to invite Kufo and Obasi to tell us now, from what I've said. You can pick from what I said and say whatever you want, but also take us now to how do you understand modern humanism now? Remember, I've talked about old humanism or ancient humanism as being religious, as being spiritual, as being traditional. I've mentioned all those things. And I said that even ancient humanism negated, castigated violence. That's why I said that there was no humanism in the spreading of Catholicism. It was blood and iron. That's why I said that there was no humanism in the spreading of Islam. There was no humanist who was killing another to spread a word of God called Allah. That was never humanism. There was no humanism in the crusades of the Romans who wanted to spread Catholicism and Christianity. That was never humanism. And in Africa, we fought our wars, we killed each other. But our traditions, our practices taught us to be humane. So I want to take it back to you. I'll start with Kufonana. I've said so much because I was giving an introduction to where humanism comes from. I want to invite you to tell me what you know about this ancient history I've said, but also take us through what we understand to be modern humanism. Welcome, Kufonana. I can't hear you. I can't hear you, Nana.
Thank you very much, Comrade Kato. My microphone was muted.
But did you hear me? Did you hear me?
I heard you. I heard you very well. I heard everything. Yeah, so upon giving us this topic for today, I did some research about Asian humanism, and I was so intrigued about the Eastern philosophies of humanism. So I wrote something down about the the Indian way of humanism, and there was this man who was called Chavala. And if you permit me to quote from him, he said, morality is natural. It is a social convention and convenience, not a divine command. There is no need to control instincts and emotions. They are commands of nature. The purpose of life is to live, and the only wisdom is happiness. And I love this quote from Chava, and this is ancient. This was before Jesus Christ, and it's so simple, and the understanding too is deep. Let me quote another one from this Indian philosopher. He was Brihaspati. Forgive me if I get the name. And he was around 700 before the Common Era. So these guys were all, were much older than Jesus Christ, who the world think is who's the repository of knowledge. And let me quote from Brihaspati: "No heaven exists, no final liberation, no soul, no other world, no rise of caste. How can this body, who when reduced to dust, revisit earth? And if a ghost can pass to the other worlds, why does he not? Why does not strong affection for those he leaves behind attracts him back, attracts the ghost back? Why life endures, let life be spent in ease and merriment. Let a man borrow money from all his friends and feast on melted butter." And I love how these people were thinking. I love how they were, and they all also concentrated on happiness.
Yes.
Yeah, the concentration of mankind is to be happy. You don't have to kowtow to any god, or you don't have to base your life on an afterlife. Why must you always be praying, be fasting because you want a better world, whilst you can make this current world a better place for you and your children? So I really love these Indians and their culture, and of course Confucius. I'm also a student of Confucianism. I haven't learned a lot, but the small things I've learned about Confucius is great, and I will advise everybody, every African, every human being on this planet to also learn something about Confucianism. So, as my brother Komarkato said, I also did something about, because I am an African and an Akan, to be precise. We Akans too were humanistic in nature. Although J.B. Dankwa said we Africans are notoriously religious, which somehow I agree with him. But apart from the religiosity aspect of it, we were also humanistic, and it is being portrayed in our culture. It is being portrayed in our sayings. So the Akans believe in the sacredness of human life. We don't kill. Even when they are about to kill animals for food, it was the duty of the Akan to pray for to the soul, to respect the soul of the animal. And also, we also believe in hard work, which is very humanistic. And this hard work has been with us till now. Because the place currently I'm living was full of trees. It was a thick forest. It was a jungle. So even when the whites came, when Queen Elizabeth came to Africa, came to Ghana in the early around Nkrumah's time, he came to Kumasi. So while she was flying the air, he named our city the Garden City because it was full of trees. So she was wondering how we were able to cut these huge trees to build our cities. And it was through hard work, and hard work is humanistic. It is a core value of humanism. And also hospitality. Hospitality is our hallmark, because we have so many adages and saying that is based on hospitality. And if you permit me, I can quote some in our in the Twi language and explain it in English. We Ohoho Nabonting. Ohoho is a stranger. Abonting is outside. So in Akan, we don't allow strangers to sleep outside. I can let a stranger sleep in my room house because I know the environment very well. I will sleep outside and I allow the stranger to sleep in my room, which was very humanistic. I don't think many Europeans would do that, because I have brothers in Europe and the West who says when my father said when he first went to Europe, he was sleeping under cars, under huge trucks, whilst the snows were, he was out, sleeping outside. But in Africa, we won't allow a stranger to sleep outside. Though recently we have copied the whites blandly, and we have people sleeping outside, sleeping on the streets. Now, and we have another adage that goes, nipa bako didia ekrom nyede. Nipa bako didia ekrom nyede, which means if one person eats, there won't be happiness in the village, because you are happy, you will be able to feed yourself. What about us? You will dance, but I won't dance with you. And we all know if people sing together, it makes the song nice. If we all dance together, everybody becomes happy. So nipa bako enidi, we all eat. So in our culture, it is based on humanism entirely. Although we have beliefs in gods, we have belief in ancestral ancestors, we have beliefs in other superstition. Humanism is the first and the most important aspect we always strive to prove to the world. So humanism, to we the Africans, has been with us, and we practice it without knowing. And we love strangers to the extent that the Akans invited many people to be with them. We Akans biologically were short people, especially the Asantes. We weren't that tall. Like if you go to, I'm thinking if I'll get a South Sudanese woman to marry, so that my children will be a bit taller, because
I'll take you to Sudan. I'll take you to Sudan.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Find me.
You are very friendly.
Yes, take me there so that I'll get a wife there. So that
very beautiful women in Sudan, very beautiful.
Yes,
black,
so that I'll get taller children. So because of that, we invited both the Mosi from the modern day Burkina Faso, people from Mali, people from Dagomba, to come and marry our women. And recently, the Asante Hine was saying it, to marry our women and give them, so that we will get more people as soldiers, as rulers. And if we're a stranger, and because we are matrilineal, the accounts are matrilineal, you will come and marry my sister. When I vacate my stool, it is your son who is going to be the king or the chief. We don't discriminate. So it baffles me why these days we are not thinking as our ancestors were thinking, because these days people discriminate anyhow. We can call other people from different tribes all sort of names, which is unhumanistic, which is not our culture. And I don't know how why we are doing this to ourselves. So to back to my I can I don't know if Kato, you mentioned a person who said cogito ergo sum. I think therefore I am. The Cartesian. I've forgotten the philosopher who said that. But we Akans, we don't go by that. We go back by saying cognatus sum ergo sumus. Forgive me for my Latin, because and it's the translation is I am related, therefore we are.
Oh yeah, that's a good thing.
Yes, I am related, therefore we are, because we have an adage in our country that says nipa bakun nsankata onamiani. one man's hand cannot cover the eye of God. It takes the society, it takes the community, all the hands within that community to cover the eyes of God, which means it is communism. We were practicing communism. So we have to go back and practice, and as we said, humanism is social justice yesterday, and I agree 100%. It's social justice. Humanism isn't a foreign concept. It is social. If you want justice socially, it is humanism.
Yes.
Because I love Chinua Achebe, and as an African growing up, we all read books from Nigeria. And Chinua Achebe, I can't quote him directly, but he said, it is not that we can't watch the moon from our huts or our houses. It is not that we can't watch the moon from our houses. We can watch it from the houses, but from the benefit of the society, we all come together in the evenings, light a fire, sit beside the fire, dance to music, and watch the moon. And that is communism. So it has always been with us. It has always been with us. And I am someone who wants to learn more. So I'll just have to quit here and allow my brother to also say something so that I'll get more into my head. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. I'm seeing here Dennis is laughing at us because we are going to marry from Juba. Yes, I'm going to get my previous wife from Juba.
Yes. I've always been thinking about it. I've always been thinking about it. And the funny thing is, I'll be under her waistline.
Yes, and so I'm going to take you to Juba. You know, when I was at law school, I I had so many friends from Sudan. My law school was international. Actually, is international school. It is a British founded university in Uganda, strictly on British values, not Ugandan found. So it was attracting international students. And as a result, I studied with Ghanaians. I studied with Nigerians. I think I was talking to who? I was talking to Baye in Nigeria and Bala in prison. I was saying that, look, actually, as I speak right now, I have ministers, I have lawyers. I went with to law school in Uganda, but you are from your country, Nigeria, because my university is international, where I did my law degree. And as a result, I also studied with people from Sudan. Very tall women, very tall men. They make me look like a dwarf, yet I'm also average. So I assure you that these are very friendly people, and I will take you personally to Sudan. And I introduce you to my friends, and then you make friends. You can stay there for a year, and then you get a woman. But I should warn
I'll be glad
that you are going to pay 500 cows. and this I have to warn you in advance. And this depends on the level of education of the girl, but also her height. You can Google it. I'm not telling you that.
Okay.
They based on the level of education and the girl's height. Now, if you are white, get a medium one, not so tall, not so tall. The more she's tall, the trouble you are. And if you are wise, get a diploma holder or certificate holder, as long as you can speak English. Then you are going to pay like 100 cows. Otherwise, I assure you. Let me tell you, the mother of my sons is from a different tribe away from my own tribe. And I don't want to mention it, but they pay cows. They asked me to pay, I think it was 20 cows. And that
wow.
Yes, I'm telling you out of facts. And they had to pay 8 cows. And even the 8 cows, I failed to pay. So I'm telling you, it
Uh,
is not easy.
yeah.
It is not, I know it in advance. It is not easy marrying from a people who want cows. They don't want your man at all. They want cows.
Cows. Then I have to work very, very, very hard.
You have to be prepared.
I'm saving my penny. eh,
Save for another 5 years.
I'm
You
saving
can
some small, small
order.
pennies for now.
You can order and negotiate. Maybe you can get for 20 cows. Maybe you can be lucky and you get someone who is about 30 years, 30 years, certificate holder, a bit taller than you, twice your height. Then you may pay 20 cows.
Okay. Okay,
Okay,
thank you very
Basi,
much.
me have given the information and the genuine information. Basi, what's your take on all this we are saying today?
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. Um, Comrades, you have said it all. I will just stand on the already established protocol to say that, in my own perspective, humanism is evolutionary. Humanism is a human centered evolutionary movement that is aimed at ensuring that humanity, as long as we exist, has some sense of happiness, has some sense of fulfillment, has some sense of actualization, have some sense of civilization, have some sense of development. So that is just my take on humanism.
Yes.
Then, in a nutshell, uh, some of these Western scholars often mislead people
Mm,
by saying that humanism started in Greece,
mm,
mentioning Plato, Socrates,
mm.
Aristotle. Yes, I appreciate these great philosophers, but it is not to, because if you read history, history of philosophy very well, you will discover that Aristotle, Plato, some of these Milesian philosophers had to study in Egypt.
Exactly.
Yes, most of even I was baffled to to discover that medical practitioners are not even supposed to be swearing oath of Hippocrates.
Yes.
If they are swearing oath of Hippocrates because of a special achievement made by Hippocrates, it's a different ball game. But they are swearing it and misleading people that Hippocrates was the first physician,
Yes.
which is falsification of fact.
It's false.
It's false because I know that Hippocrates
Exactly.
studied under Imhotep of the ancient Kemet.
Exactly.
So um, I read Barbara Smoker,
Mm,
yes, book on humanism. I
mm,
respect her so much because she's a foremost humanist.
mm.
But though to some extent she was elaborate in attributing the origin of humanism to Greeks, though she said that most of these Greek scholars studied was reported to have studied in Africa.
Mm,
So, what I will advise some of these Western scholars to do is to try to make some findings
mm,
on humanism, because humanism actually started in Africa.
mm.
Humanism started in Africa.
Yes.
However, if you go to the Western side, you will mention Plato, you will mention Aristotle, you will mention Protagoras,
Mm,
you will mention Democritus,
mm,
and so on and so forth. They spoke on humanism,
mm,
but most of them, yes, Protagoras was a bit more humanistic.
mm,
Yes, he was a bit more humanistic than the rest.
mm.
Given that, the rest were religious humanists, as you rightly said, because
Mm,
religion, over the years, religion have a way of taking over a society. And when you speak against it, because the population are religious, when you speak against it, they will fight you. So some of the scholars want to, in a sublime manner, speak of humanism. That is why most of them embrace religious humanism, because that was the order of the day, and also because of the limited knowledge they have. Knowledge is evolutionary. Humanism
Yes.
started. It started with people who are religious, who are theistic, but at a point, due to knowledge, we began to understand that, Sigmund Freud says something about religion. He said that religion is just like a means the adult assume child would retain their childhood curiosity, retain their childhood lifestyle, had their childlike ways of life. The way adults, as an adult, you become independent. Nobody pets you again. You don't cry to anybody. So Sigmund Freud, a famous psychologist, he was a physician anyway, though he wrote so much on psychology.
Mm.
So he spoke on religion, and he had this to say. Sigmund Freud was also will I call him a humanist as well.
Mm.
So he said about this. So religion evolved as, an appeal to certain things we cannot explain. It grew as it grew as an alternative, a defense to ignorance. If you cannot explain this, just as I rightly said, 2 days ago, there's also another jungle justice mob action somewhere in my area, in the Igbo tribe, somewhere in Anambra State. They allegedly apprehended two persons alleged to have made a person's penis to disappear.
Can you imagine?
Funny enough, yes, funny enough, and because the general masses could not explain what leads to penis shrinkage. When this thing happens and a person crosses their path that time, coincidentally, they will blame the person. But if they know that certain medical conditions can lead to penis shrinkage, when it happens, you go to a medical doctor. But religion and superstition keeps offering an alternative. And it has become the order of the day that when you want to dislodge some of these things using critical thinking, you become an enemy. Just as some of us humanists here, a time will come when they start pursuing us. Yes, they
Mm.
will start pursuing us. And I heard that one time they pursued one of our, they chased after, they chased him to exile, one of our comrades here. That is what they continue doing. Because our people, in my Igbo language, there is what we call Ajife Baafa Oburo Menala.
Mm.
In English, it means when an abomination lasts long, it becomes a culture. So this culture of superstition appeal to ignorance as a result of our limited knowledge has turned into a culture in our society that we as modern humanists, I keep saying it, we have to enlighten people. Like I was also reading on the course of my research on humanism, I was also reading about what Harari has to say about humanism. Harari classified humanism into three.
Mm.
He classified it into liberal humanism.
Mm.
He also spoke of socialist humanism. He also
Mm.
spoke of evolutionary humanism.
Yes.
Yes, and in line with what I said, humanism is evolutionary. At a point, most humanists, at the early stage, most humanists were, due to our limited knowledge, were superstitious. But as time goes on, this era of modern and contemporary humanism, we have embraced critical thinking. We
Mm.
have embraced science as a means of solving human problems, not appeal to false cause and blame games and ignorance that, you know, tend to hurt us the most. Then liberal humanism is also part of us now, part of this modern humanism. Then socialist humanism, I would say, is part of African humanism, because Africans are socialists until our socialist and communal nature was distorted with capitalism, with imperialism, with selfish and self-centeredness. So, but myself, I said it the last time. Myself, my classification of humanism is two. I can be quoted anywhere. Yes. In fact, I will put up an article on this. My classification of humanism, even up to date, is we have conscious and unconscious
Yes, Obasi, you are lost a bit, of course, but I've made your point clear. You have made your point clear, and of course, I agree with you entirely in everything I've
through
said,
education.
Obasi.
Sorry, I'm back. Through
Okay, go ahead.
education, through education inquiry, we've been able to identify that humanism is the best alternative.
Mm.
Then the other set of people are those I call unconscious humanists. In their daily activities, they perform some of the rules of humanism. But due to the fact that they are unconscious of the power within, they have decided to remain unconscious and shun humanism. Take, for instance, when you have to do everything for yourself, humanism says that everything is human centered. There is no supreme being somewhere in the sky coming to help us. That's what humanism says. And the other unconscious one say that there is supreme being in the sky that is helping you. Whereas you're the one helping yourself. You can't do anything without yourself. But after everything, due to your unconsciousness, you attribute your human-centered progress to an anthropomorphic deity over there in the sky. No wonder a person like Ludwig Feuerbach, a great humanist, captured this in his book Essence of Christianity, when he said that God is just a projection of human attributes. And I call it the other time anthropomorphism. In philosophy, it is called anthropomorphism. People trying to give human attribute to some beings elsewhere. So that is about humanism. We make great achievement, great feats, and due to our ignorance or due to indoctrination, we attribute our progress to something else, to non-existent deity. So that is my take for now. So in the next
Mm.
edition, I shall talk more on what I think about humanism. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you so much, Obasi, Council Obasi. Thank you so much. Of course, thank you so much, Nana Kufo. When you mentioned the book called Sapiens, A Brief History by Yuval Noah Harari, I always have it as a Bible book. Of course, I don't agree with him on specific aspects. I always challenge his writing, but I also agree with him on different other aspects. Now, in this book, you mentioned how it classifies humanism. Of course, that you are right. And in my book here, I dismiss the way he agrees, he describes humanism. This is his book, and this is my book. So I challenge him to explain humanism better. But when you look at his
I must
book,
get yours soon.
yes, yeah, because I didn't agree with him at all. Though I
It's
respected
a
his
must.
work, and I respected his work and I caught it. But when it came to humanism, I thought he had misfired terribly. But in this book, he says that, and rightly so, that about 2.5 million years ago, the genus ape evolved from East Africa and humanity was born. I agree with Yuval Noah Harari that humanity started in East Africa. And of course, humans started from Africa. And as a East African, I say, Ole, we are the people of the Nile. We gave you life. We gave you everything. You people came from us. We, the people of the Nile. Even Harari, a Jew, accepts. But taking that sarcasm away, because who knows, we all may be wrong, but that is science. Now, I want to invite Dennis. Dennis, I have slides. I'm going to use 10 minutes only, and we'll conclude. I'll go back to Obasi after the slides, and we'll conclude. Dennis, let us have those slides. I'm going to rush through them. In those slides, you can see I talk about a brief history of humanism. And of course, I say humanism began as, of course, religious humanism. There was Renaissance humanism. There was cultural humanism. There was philosophical humanism. There was secular humanism. There was Christian humanism. And of course, there is modern humanism. That's how I mention it in my book. In my book, I talk about Ubuntu. And Ubuntu, I say, that it's a philosophy, of course, which have been part of Africa, and I give you what it means. You can't be human all by yourself. And when you have this quality, Ubuntu, you are known for your generosity. And let us continue. Dennis, I'm rushing through it because we have already short our time. Of course, I talk about the golden rule in China. You can imagine Christians claim this golden rule, but this rule was in China. And I'm going to give you facts. The golden rule existed among all the major philosophical schools of ancient China: Mohism, Taoism, and Confucianism. Examples of the concept included Zigong asked, saying, "Is there one that may serve as a rule of practice for all of one's life?" The master said, "Is not reciprocity such a one?" That was Confucius. You can imagine how he was answering. Then, never impose on others what you would not choose for yourself.
Yes.
That is Confucius. And all these guys, I should repeat, existed before your Jesus Christ. Now, Dennis, wait a bit. I want to go slow. This is important. The golden rule in the Greek, I want to go through because we are giving a lesson here, which I want to actually repeat it. If people regarded other people's families in the same way that they regard their own, who then would incite their own family to attack that of another? You can imagine that. And it comes from Mozi, a Chinese. For what would do for others, that as one would do for oneself. That is Mozi. Now, regards your neighbor's gain as your own gain, and your neighbor's loss as your own what? Loss. That is Laozi. These are Chinese preaching humanism. Then you go to another page. Ancient philosophy I talked about. Look at this. The golden rule is in its prohibitive form, was a common principle in ancient Egypt philosophy. Examples of the general concept include: do not do to your neighbor what you would take ill from him. That is Pittacus. And Pittacus lived circa 340 to 568 BC. Then it's go slow. I have to explain this. Now, another one is avoid doing what you would blame others for doing. Who said that? That is Thales, circa 624 BC to 546 BC, before your Jesus Christ was born. These sages were speaking wisdom. And then you say, oh, Jesus was the cleverest. Never. Now, what do you do? What you do not want to happen to you, do not do it to yourself either. Do not do it to yourself either. Sextus, Pythagorean, the oldest extant reference is Sextus and all that. Now, the last one here on this page is: do not do to others what would anger you if done to you by others. That is Isocrates, another philosopher, 436 to 338 before Christ. And Epictetus says, what thou avoidest suffering, thyself seek not to be imposed on others. That is Epictetus. Now you can imagine, Dennis, you can continue. You can imagine that kind of teaching. And now, Christianity. You see, Christianity is a copycat. Christianity knows one thing: copy, copy, copy. Islam knows one thing: copy, copy, copy. Now we have seen intelligent people saying these things and being documented, and here comes Christianity with this own version. What does Christianity say? The book of Tobit 4:15 says, "Do not do to no one what you yourself dislikes." Now, is that different from what Epictetus said? From what Mao Laozi said? Nothing. Look at the New Testament, Matthew 7:12. There are two passages there, and all these passages say what? Therefore, all things, whatever ye what, that man should do to you, do ye even to them, not to them. For there is the law and the prophets, as ye would that man should do to you, do ye though to them likewise. Now you can imagine, Christianity is simply copying from what the Chinese said, what the Greeks said, is simply copying and pasting. Look at Confucianism, which was there actually before Christianity. Xingzong says, is there any one word that could guide a person throughout life? And the master replied, how about shu, reciprocity? Shu means reciprocity. Never impose on others what you do not choose for yourself. You can imagine. Dennis, even if I stop, I'm going to stop on this one, Dennis. I won't even finish everything because I'm already happy. I've done justice on this. The golden rule of a humanist is what? The golden rule of a human. We're going to stop on this, Dennis. I've done justice for today. Now, here's the golden rule. Trying to live according to the golden rule means trying to empathize with other people, including those who may be very different from us. Empathy is at the root of kindness, compassion, understanding, and respect. Qualities that we all appreciate being shown. Whoever we are, whatever we think, and wherever we come from. For this reason, many people find the golden rule corollary to do not treat people in a way you would not wish to be treated yourself. Wow. I'm done, Dennis. No more quotations. It's enough for today. Dennis, we go back to the studio. I won't even add more. I think I'm happy with this. Thank you so much. Now you can see, I had written so many, but because of time, I feel I have done justice. I've done justice. One, I've shown the world, the viewers, that look, Christianity and Islam are copycats. In fact, they never invented anything new apart from violence. And I want it to go on record. Apart from violence that they used to ensure that everyone become a Catholic, because Catholic was a state religion, and later on, when Muhammad comes and takes over, defeats the Romans, takes over, Ottoman Empire takes over later, of course, before that, and then everyone now, he must become a Muslim. But what have I shown right now? Just like Kufu has shown, just like Obasa has shown, that before these religions, people knew humanism. And basically, the religions copied from what the people knew, because a religion comes from within the society. It doesn't come from heaven as they tell you lies, that the Bible, I hear the Quran dropped. How nonsensical can people be? that the Bible was inspired. How nonsensical can people be? That a book comes and falls on the ground. Fall, falls on the ground. That someone sleeps and knowledge comes, then he writes. I think he's dreaming as he's writing. You know? But the fact is that, away from my bashing of these religions, which are nonsensical, which are mythological, is that whatever they wrote about that was sensible, and I'm repeating it, that was sensible, had been said by sages so many years ago. That Christianity comes, how many years when Jesus Christ had died? You can certainly be very surprised how someone died so many years and then you claim to write a book about him when he's dead long time ago. So it's all confusion. But to crown it all for me, from my side going forward, number one, I'm saying that we had humanists, but in different shades. There were religious humanists, there were spiritual humanists, there were traditional humanists. Number two, Africa is the mother of humanism. After all, even Yuval Harari says that human beings started from East Africa, anyway, which means we gave humanity humanism because humanity came from us. Anyway, now number three, I'm making a deduction from my talk, is that modern humanism began in the 20th century. It doesn't mean that because there was no word humanism, therefore, Epictetus, Lewis, Maozi, Confucius were not humanistic. They were. But the word simply came into place in the 20th century. I want to thank you so much. I'm going to pass it over to you, beginning with Nanakufo, your parting shot in 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, Comrade Kato. As you said, I've been learning a lot from you. And with modern humanism, the whole world is made to believe that it is from the West, which initially I thought was from the West, but from this education platform, I've learned that it was just the word invented from the West, but the core values, the core principles of humanism have always been with all mankind.
Yes.
Throughout time immemorial.
Yes.
And I will emphasize with us Africans that humanism is with us. It's not alien, because what I'm saying this is that I have so many friends, so many people telling me that it is a new age occult. Educated people, elite people who claim they've learned a lot, saying your humanism, and I tell them, you are a good person. You never harm me. Right now, the place I'm staying, the house the room I'm staying right now, I'm staying with the man who stays here is a Muslim man, and it's in Ashanti region, but it's a Muslim man, and he has the right to live with other like-minded Muslims. But I've worked with him before at Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, and he knows me personally. So when I was evicted from my house because I brought in so many friends, the place I was formerly living, he allowed me to come and stay in his house. He is a Muslim, but it is humanism. It is humanism, and I think he is a liberal Muslim, and when he cooks food, he gives me some to eat. So humanism is what we are practicing now. But as we said, because of religion, because of Christians always want to hijack morality, but I think they are the excuse me, but they are the worst human beings I've ever seen in my life, for me personally, because most Christians will not cook food for another person, especially an unbeliever, to come and eat, unless maybe you are a family member. Even sometimes, even my family, because I'm a humanist, my dad is a very liberal person, but the wife, his wife is very religious. But because of my humanism, I'm not part of their family anymore, because I'm a humanist, and they think I will corrupt their children. So it is even recently that my junior brother and sister are even now trying to get back in touch with me on social media. But people, modern day human beings, modern day Ghanaians, will preach virtue and practice vice otherwise. So to end it all here, what I'm saying is we are practicing humanism, but it is we have to make an effort. And I wasn't a bad person, but humanism has made me a better person. I've
Yes.
learned empathy. I've learned empathy. At first, I, I didn't care much about other people, though. But right now, I feel for humanity, because the more you learn about humanism, the more you understand that we have only one life to live, and you are not a special person. Though we all have to come together and work to make this place a better place for all of us. So I'm really glad to be part of this team, part of this platform, and I advocate for all our viewers to be humanistic inclined. They have to learn humanism and let humanism be their religion, because some people say they can't live without religion. So if you can't live without religion, let humanism be your religion. Thank you, Comrade Kato.
That's beautiful. And I'll crown it with it after Obasi. Obasi, what's your take? Parting shots in 2 minutes.
Well, thank you so much. You, as you were trying to conclude, you said something that thrilled me and got my attention to something. You know, as you said, Christianity, religion generally try to hijack everything. For instance, you see, the before common era that is supposed to be, they are now hijacked it to before Christ.
Mm.
Yes, BCE is supposed to be before common era, but it has been
Yes.
yes, it has been hijacked to mean before Christ.
Mm.
Then the other one, CE, common era, has been
Mm.
hijacked to mean 80 after Christ, after death.
Mm.
You see, they like hijacking everything. They like hijacking everything. Yes, as you rightly said, these people tend to frustrate you. I shared my experience the last time. How a lot of a lot of ladies I wanted to date turned me down because they said I'm a humanist, and the humanist couldn't make a good husband, and a humanist couldn't be a human being. A humanist is like a dead person to them. So that turned out my offer, and I decided to move on. I'm actually impregnable in whatever I want to do. I don't submit to pressure. So when they made their choice, I was even happy that they made the choice, not emotionally blackmailing me or playing with my emotions. So that is how they do. Christians, use a sublime way of promoting hate, religious based hate, currently in the contemporary era. But the Muslims in our Nigerian society use violence, but the Christians will use, will I say, emotional torture.
Yeah.
But yes, Oputa, the late Oputa I respect so much, say that emotional torture is death by installment. So when you abuse somebody emotionally, you are indirectly torturing them physically.
Obasi, you are lost, but your message was loud and clear. I cannot blame you because you know the internet is really bad. Obasi, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kufo. Kufo, you said something very important, and I want to make it on record. We are not against anyone. We are not against Muslims. In fact, my best friends are Muslims. Kayanja Yunus, one of my best friends, Mehdi. For me, people I call friends are basically Muslims. In fact, I went to Islamic University in Uganda at one point, and I got so many friends. So I love Muslims, but I separate Islam and Muslims, the people. How these are my friends. My chairperson at Halea, my NGO, is from a Muslim family with a Muslim name. Our treasurer Hadija is from a Muslim family. So I love Muslims. So, but I simply don't agree with Islam. I want to make that one clear. And we cannot stand here and say that Muslims are bad. Never.
Yeah.
But the idea behind Islam is corrupted. So I agree with you when you say, my brother, that you are right now staying with a Muslim friend. Because people are people. These religions are simple labels. You can even be a worst humanist. Not every humanist is actually humanistic.
Yeah.
There are many humanists who are pretending simply to get money from people. There are many scammers under humanism. There are many killers, bad people hiding under humanism, bad people
Yeah.
doing business using their companies hiding under humanism so that they can evade taxes. There are many crooks who call themselves humanists like me and
Humanists.
you.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean that humanism as a concept is bad, but the individual can be bad. But
Yeah.
in the reverse, Islam itself has a bad message that actually can
Yeah.
turn a good person into a worst person. But it does not mean that Muslims are bad. Muslims are good people, especially those who are secular, those who read
Yeah.
and let live, live and let live. Christians are good people. I was born in a Christian family. My mother is still a Christian. How do I say that my mother is bad? My mother is my mother, and my mother is lovely. Is a Catholic. My mother is 8 years. My mother goes to church, and my mother is a good woman. But she's a good woman who is a Catholic. So I want to put it on record. We are not saying that Christians are bad. Never.
Yeah.
We are not saying that Muslims are bad. Never. But we are saying that some of these teachings are wrong. But also we are saying that the way these religions were ushered into the world were also full of blood and iron. And these are facts. There were crusades. People died. Thousands of people died. In fact, religion is the number one killer of humanity in the world.
Yeah.
And I repeat it. Religion is the number one killer of humanity in the world. And don't forget, there is also what we call African tradition religion, where Africans worshipped and sacrificed, including sacrificing people.
Yeah.
The Aztec in modern day Peru, Argentina, those areas, they used to sacrifice people. You know, Apocalypse, if you watch that movie,
Yeah.
you will see this tribe, people in the forest who used to cut other people's necks so that
Yeah.
God can be pleased and the moon can whatever. Eclipse, they are so confused. So people have been terrible. People have killed people. Empires to become empires killed people, including our own kingdoms in Africa. Our own kings were murderers. Our own kings were bad people.
Yeah.
Our own kings were bad people. Our own kings murdered innocent people in thousands.
Yeah.
So there is no way we can say religion is only bad in Europe. Religion was also bad in Africa. But we are here to say that the way religion was spread was violent, and that's the historical fact. But we are saying we have no problem with our brothers who are Muslims. We have no problems with our brothers who are Christians. We are only saying, please, your ideology is flawed. It has some weaknesses. May you please be more humane. May you please don't go by the book, because the book says, kill me when I denounce your God. Please don't follow your book. Follow reason. Follow logic. Follow humanity. Be a humanistic person. You can even be a Muslim, but who is a humanistic person. I have no problem. You can be a Catholic who is a humanistic person. I have no problem. Please simply be humanistic. For me, that's the message we are passing on. Me and Ukofo and Obasi and the entire team at TV Africa, we are passing this message to you today. Be humanistic. Thank you, Dennis, for being our producer for today. Thank you, Ukofo, for being here. Thank you, Obasi, and everyone watching us. We are happy we had you. Subscribe to our TV channel, Humans TV Africa, and please stay alive. Keep the African hope alive. See you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.